you so much for joining us, Vanessa. We'd love to have you here to share with prospective students a little bit more about your project and also about your experience with the Academy in general. So why don't you, start us off with telling us a little bit about what your project was on?
Yeah, so my project was kind of focused on my two main kind of interests. So it was psychology and dance. So I tried to connect them in a way that made sense in kind of research. So I looked into the benefits and the detrimental effects of exercise and dance in kind of three main perspectives. So it was physical health, mental health, and social health.
And so you talked a little bit about psychology. So
Mhm.
how were you able to tie psychology into it? I know you talked about physical, mental. So how were you able to tie all of those pieces together?
So I kind of looked into motivation as one of my main kind of topics. Um, and obviously, motivation is really tied to psychology because it's kind of how you get yourself up in the day, like get yourself ready to do things. Um, so that's kind of how I tied it in. And also just looking at the mental health kind of other sides of it. So, um, how it affects your kind of daily mood and things like that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your findings? Was it a literature review that you did or data analysis? What was it?
I kind of just did kind of like my own research and looked into other research papers. I kind of chose to go more on the route of like a general review, just to kind of see what research has already been done in the industry and what can be done in the future, and kind of added in like different research papers to make it more complex, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I would love to hear a little bit more about when you said a combination between your own research and the research that you've done. So what was the portion that was, that you would call your research?
I think definitely like looking into my own experiences. So obviously as like a person in general, like you have kind of your own idea of how sports affects you, and obviously as a dancer, like also how that affects me in all three capacities. So that's kind of what I would say is like my own research.
So you were basically able to tie in not only, um, what you read outside, but I guess more from your personal life with your own extracurricular activities outside of school already, and
Yeah, for
kind of
sure.
other interests. So what type of dance do you do?
I mainly do ballet, and that's kind of what I usually focus on, but I also like to get into other styles as well.
All right, so that's
Yeah.
interesting. So was your research specifically on ballet, or did you quantify it by different dance types?
I tried to keep it more kind of general just because I don't really want to get in too specifically, just because it gets a lot harder to find papers. But obviously, I did kind of think about the different aspects of it. So, for example, like different styles of dance may have different effects, or like different types of sports, like whether it was outdoors or indoors, may also have a different effect. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and since you're on this, can you walk us through some of the, findings or anything that you were able to come across?
I'm actually still like kind of working through it, so I don't have exactly like the whole thing done. But I think I was able to it kind of aligned with like my hypothesis of how sports and dance kind of benefits the individual. Obviously, there's also like limitations that I think a lot of people don't really see, especially for like sports, because people genuinely think like, oh, like sports will always benefit you in all three kind of different aspects of health. But there's also some like limitations. Like a lot of people don't have the motivation to kind of get involved. And that becomes a really big thing for people. And that kind of leads to a sedentary lifestyle and leads to kind of different disorders and diseases, for example, like obesity. Um, but yeah.
So you're talking not necessarily only about how dance or sports increases your motivation to do other things, but also about the motivation to get into dance to begin with.
Like kind of, I think that wasn't obviously that's kind of part of it, but I don't think I tried to focus more on like um how it affects you as a person rather than getting into it. But it definitely like plays a part in the whole kind of research, I guess.
Hmm. I think just from a psychology perspective, I know you're still doing your project. I think it might also be interesting to look at what types of people get into dance, just also in terms of the personality construct, or what are the things that people are looking for to improve, by getting into
Yeah.
dance, because there definitely is also a social aspect, and then that definitely also ties into motivation and emotional health too. So I think that will all be very interesting.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about, how did you already come into the program with, the knowledge that you were going to do a project like this, or were you more open?
I did kind of already have this idea in my head of like the general direction I wanted to go in, just because I was trying to find a way to integrate my two passions, as I mentioned earlier. And I think like having a project that like really captures your interests, like makes you want to actually like do it, which is a really important factor. Um, and kind of the benefit, I guess, of personally, I did the one-on-one. So being able to like talk to my mentor and like have her give me kind of ideas and feedback on what might work and might not work as well, in terms of a research project was really, really helpful and beneficial for me.
Yeah, so if we were, even rewinding time to before you even started the program, why do you think you picked the one-on-one compared to the Future Scholar?
I think personally, I have kind of more of an idea of what my interests are in psychology. So I know, for example, I like social and sports psychology in general. So I didn't really want to, or no, I didn't want to, but like I felt more interested in going in the specific direction that I was interested in rather than having a more general and broad kind of overview of the subject. And I think one on one for me personally works well because I like being able to ask questions. And I feel like the one on one environment makes me feel more kind of less worried about other people and things like that.
In terms of it being more intimate and also more conversational?
Yeah, for sure. Like I was able to kind of give my response and have her, my mentor, kind of listen to the ideas I had. And it was more interactive as a whole. So it didn't feel more like lectures, but more like a kind of conversation in a way.
So for those of us watching, then can you also tell them a little bit about the structures of the course, from week to week, how you and your mentor have been doing it so far?
Yeah. So me and my mentor kind of, at first we discussed kind of my general interests and the kind of work that she has done and the knowledge that she has. So we tried to find kind of the overlap so she was able to prepare lessons based on what I was interested in. And so every week we would be able to build on previous topics. And I guess we didn't really focus on like kind of the research part of it as much because I felt like I was able to do that on my own time. So we did kind of more lessons and more interactive kind of um, conversations, I guess. So I was able to learn more that way, just to be able to chat with obviously an expert in the field and kind of get a sense of what research in that capacity looks like.
Yeah, and how do you think this differs from your experience at school, with your teachers at school?
I think it's really different because obviously here I was able to kind of focus on the exact um, topics that I was interested in. So it was really designed for me personally as a person. And at school, obviously, you're more focused on kind of general knowledge and building up that foundation to go into further things. As well, like teachers, they're great, like as great as they can be. Like they're not kind of experts in one specific field. Whereas my professor here, she is working in this field and has experience doing research and going through this process of writing papers, learning things like that. Yeah.
Mm. So it's both tailored in terms of your subject interest and also just the teacher's level of expertise as
Yeah.
well. So can you tell us also, how far are you into maybe looking at colleges or, in your high school career?
Yeah, so I'm going into grade 12. So that's like my senior year if it's like in the US. I don't know, words. So obviously I've been looking into it. I've started like kind of like the structure of my essays. Um, and obviously they're due in like a few months. So it's like stressful, but it's also kind of exciting because you're like moving on to a whole new chapter of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely super exciting and also super stressful and busy. So I was also wondering how or whether the program has also, helped you clarify more of what you're looking for in a college in terms of, maybe what they offer or just the type of um, class environment that it fosters.
Yeah, for sure. So I think like through the one-on-one, I knew, or kind of clarified for me personally that this is kind of the structure I like. So more intimate environments rather than big classroom lectures of like, I don't know, like 12,000 people. Like just smaller classes feel better for me. I'm more comfortable and more familiar with the people and the environment and the teachers. So that kind of helps me. Another thing is being able to like solidify my interests. So like before I came in, like I had an idea, but I wasn't 100% sure like this is exactly the direction I want to go in. Whereas now, like through the different classes, the different the kind of like things I've been taught through this program, I know that this is really something that I'm interested in and something that I want to pursue in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly so exciting and I guess pretty impressive because the program itself isn't long, right? But you're able to dive in on your interests, you're able to really hone your skills as just a scholar and then also figure out, more clarity for your college direction. Um, so would you say that, so far in your experience, you have had enough time to answer all of your questions? Even though it generally is 1 hour per week with a professor?
Um, I think if I honestly were to be able to go back in time, like I would try to maximize that hour that I had.
Mm.
Because I feel like yes, I was able to get into it, but it also didn't go as kind of deep as it could have, and like being able to like really get into like the specifics of like, for example, like the experiments that we covered, um, or the kind of research that people have done. And I think like in kind of I'm when I'm reflecting back on it, it feels like a really long time, but it also was really short at the same time. Um, so I feel like um, I would want to kind of have it like really structured of like the first half would be like lectures and then the second half would be like research or like kind of implementing it like one session per week kind of um, so that way I can maximize kind of both the directions of the program.
So almost finding a balance between, I guess, the freedom to explore, but also the structure to really, hone things in.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, I guess we're super happy that you did this program. I always like to say that I wish that when I was in high school there was a program like this. I think I would have been able to take a lot more shortcuts in terms of my own academic career. So yeah, we're super excited for you and for wherever you end up going to in college. And yeah, if there's any last things that you would like to share with the students who are watching.
I don't think so. Just like take advantage of the opportunity, especially if you are given one like this, because you can really learn about a lot about yourself, your interests, and like just be able to like make connections because obviously that's also really important. And that's kind of what I really liked about the program. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely. It's also what you said about your own project. It's how it informs you as a whole person,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. Bye.